So let me ask you something. What's a great teacher actually worth? And I don't just mean, in warm, fuzzy memories. I'm talking cold, hard cash. We always say education is an investment, right? But what's the actual ROI on the most important piece of that puzzle? The teacher. Well, today we're going to dig into the economics of it. And trust me, the answer is genuinely staggering. It might just flip the way you think about our entire school system. All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll take a hard look at the current report card for U.S. education. Then, we're going to uncover the one secret ingredient that actually makes a difference. After that, we're following the money to see just how big the price tag on great teaching is. Think trillions. And finally, we'll tie it all together and ask, so what? What should we do about all this? Okay, first things first. Before we can talk about solutions, we've got to get on the same page about the problem. So, let's pull up the data and get a real, no-nonsense checkup on where the U.S. education system is at right now. Yeah, this is the big one, isn't it? How are U.S. students really doing? Are we, as a country, making the grade? Let's see what the numbers say, not just here at home, but on the world stage. So when we look at how we stack up internationally, it's a tale of two very different stories. You're looking at the PISA scores here. That's a big international test they give to 15-year-olds. In reading, hey, we're doing pretty well, near the top of the pack. But then you look at math, and whoa, we drop all the way to the bottom third. It's this huge gap, and it's not a new thing. It tells us there's a serious long-term issue we need to look at. And this isn't just about one test. If you zoom out and look at the trend over time, the bigger picture is, it's stagnation. For the better part of 2 decades, our national test scores have basically flatlined. Think about that. An 8th grader today is performing at roughly the same level as an 8th grader was 24 years ago. And you see that sharp dip after 2019, but that's really just a dip on an already worryingly flat line. Okay, but it's not all bad news. There's definitely a bright spot here. High school graduation rates are up across the board. And even better, they've gone up fastest for Black and Hispanic students, which is fantastic progress. But, and this is a big but, we're still seeing these persistent gaps. A 7 to 9 point gap is still there. So even though we're getting more kids across that finish line, the playing field still isn't level. All right, so that's the picture. Some bright spots, but a lot of room for improvement. So what do? Where do we put our time and money? We talk about smaller classes, fancy new technology, shiny textbooks, but what is the one thing that actually truly makes a difference for students? I mean, we all have a picture in our heads, right? When you think of a great teacher, what comes to mind? Probably someone with tons of experience, maybe a master's degree, that just feels right. But the real question is, does the data back up our gut feeling? And you know what? Our entire education system is built around that gut feeling. We literally pay teachers based on these things. The more years you've taught, the higher your salary. Get a master's degree, you get a pay bump. That's the formula. We've built this whole structure on the assumption that these credentials equal effectiveness. So, does it work? And here's the bombshell. The research is overwhelming on this. Decades of studies have looked at this from every angle, and they all say the same thing. Those things we think matter, they don't. At least not in the way we assume. There is almost no consistent connection between a teacher having a master's degree or 20 years of experience and how much their students actually learn. It's a shocking disconnect. And this right here is the heart of the problem. Look at this. On one side, you have how we pay teachers. It's all about inputs, years in the classroom, degrees on the wall. We spend a ton of money on this stuff. On the other side, you have what actually drives student achievement, the real measurable impact a teacher has year to year. We're investing in one column while the results are coming from the totally different one. It's a huge mismatch. So if it's not the credentials, what is it? It's their effectiveness. It's the measurable impact they have. Economists call this value added, which is just a fancy way of saying, how much does a student learn with this specific teacher in 1 year? And the difference between a great teacher and a poor one is it's just massive. A great teacher can get their students a year and a half's worth of learning in a single school year. A bad teacher, maybe only half a year's worth. Imagine that. The single biggest factor in a student's progress is simply the luck of the draw and who their teacher is. Okay, so we found the secret ingredient, teacher effectiveness. Now for the really mind-blowing part. Let's actually put a price tag on it. What is a great teacher worth in dollars and cents? So really, what is one great teacher worth? I want you to brace yourself, because the numbers we're about to get into are huge. And this isn't just theory. This is based on solid economic data that connects how kids do in school directly to how much they'll earn later in life. Let's start small, just one student. If that one student gets a top-tier teacher for just a single school year, their lifetime earnings are projected to go up by over $150,000. Think about that. That's the power of one great teacher for one kid for 1 year. But of course, a teacher has more than one student. So let's scale that up to a whole classroom. You take that effect and multiply it by, say, 20 kids, and suddenly that one great teacher is adding over $400,000 in future earnings to the economy every single year. They are literally a one-person economic stimulus package. And let this really sink in. We're not talking about one factor among many. It is the number one factor. You can look at class size, you can look at funding, you can look at technology. Nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to the impact of the person at the front of the classroom. It's the most powerful tool we have. Okay, so let's go from the classroom to the entire country, and this is the big one. If we could just replace the bottom 5 to 8% of our teachers, the least effective ones, with just average teachers, the economic gain to the US GDP is estimated to be $100 trillion. Let me say that again, 100 trillion. That's not a typo. That is more than 4 times the entire US economy right now. This isn't just about schools. This is maybe the single biggest economic lever our country has. And look, these aren't just some crazy numbers I'm pulling out of thin air. This is coming from top economists at places like the Hoover Institution and the Brookings Institution. This isn't a political thing. The data is just overwhelming, and everybody who looks at it seriously comes to the same conclusion. Okay, so the evidence is pretty darn clear. The economic impact is undeniable. Which brings us to the most important question of all. If we know this, if we know what works and we know what it's worth, what are we going to do about it? Well, the research actually suggests a pretty clear roadmap. Step 1, we have to get good at identifying who the great teachers are using data. Step 2, we have to retain them, pay them what they're worth, and give them reasons to stay. Step 3, we need to develop and support every teacher to help them get better. And step 4, we have to be willing to make the tough calls and move the least effective teachers out of the classroom after giving them a real chance to improve. Look, what this really calls for is a total shift in how we think about the teaching profession. We need to move away from the current system that's all about inputs, checking boxes for degrees and seniority. Instead, we need a system that is laser-focused on the only outcome that actually matters: how much are kids learning? And that means building a system that rewards and retains proven excellence. And that really is the $100 trillion question, isn't it? All the data shows that a great teacher is an economic powerhouse. They change lives, and they can literally change the economic future of our country. So if we know that a great teacher is the most valuable asset in our entire education system, why on earth don't we treat them that way?